All right, so I'm going to explain why your narcissistic parents, or I should say rather, why your siblings can't snap out of your narcissistic parents. How can I explain this? Your narcissistic parents' manipulation, and the spell that your narcissistic parents have over your siblings that separates all of you, the triangulation, the gaslighting, the manipulation, that separates you from your siblings, especially as a scapegoat, and causes you all to essentially go your separate ways. All right, this is what's causing this is a variety of different things, and the answer to this is essentially to go no or low contact, and accept that you're never going to have a relationship with them unless your parents are involved in this relationship as well, because they are so far under your parents' manipulation, under your narcissistic parents' manipulation, and gaslighting, and they're trapped in their own bubble. All right, you can kind of imagine a Narnia scenario where they can't get out of Narnia, or a dreamlike scenario, or a kind of, I think the best way to describe it would be the best way I can describe it. It's pretty much just like they're living in Alice in Wonderland. Like they do not know to the extent of which they're getting abused. Your narcissistic parents have them in this false reality, in this false world, where they've been under the gaslighting and the manipulation and the dogma of your narcissistic parents for so long. They don't know what's right, what's wrong. They don't know what abuse is and what's not abuse, because they may not be getting physically abused, right? Or maybe they are getting physically abused, but maybe they're not getting physically abused, right? Maybe they're getting psychologically abused. They're getting verbally abused in some way, emotionally abused. Like my parents didn't have to resort to swearing at us or anything. Usually it was a lot of teasing, nicknames, name calling, guilt tripping, emotional coercion, emotional control, not letting you go anywhere and do things. It was essentially, with my mother, it was a lot of enmeshment, infantilization, like I said, the big one that we talked about. So pretty much, it's very sad when you think about it. When you break out of the dark spell, I guess you could say, the shadow realm, you could call it. You could essentially call it the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow realm. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow realm, right? Essentially, they're in the shadow realm, except in the show, they know when they're in the shadow realm, but essentially they're in the shadow realm and they don't know it. That's how deep the manipulation runs. That's how deep the gaslighting runs. My brother and my sister, I talked to them on multiple occasions. They literally do not believe they were abused, although I could point to many instances that would say otherwise, including verbal abuse, psychological abuse. There was a lot of name bullying, making fun of my brother, making fun of my sister. There was even some sexual abuse, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into that because that's something even I didn't realize I didn't realize it happened until years later after I got out. And I accept that it happened. I remember a lot of the things. There's still a lot of things that I'm coming to terms with that I'm remembering, but I also know that it did happen. I know that it did happen. One of the signs was, I read online, was that, when you're a kid, if it happens to you when you're a kid, you wet the bed all the time. You wet the bed frequently, you can't help it. And I was wearing, I don't even want to get into it, but anyway, So yeah, these are just other things you know, that go on. Like they're essentially, you can imagine, you know, your parents treat your siblings the way they treat them, right? They may not like how their treatment at the beginning, but they get used to it, and then, you know, as with anything, you grow to essentially trauma bond with your abuser in question, right? So in this case, narcissistic parents, right? You trauma bond with them. So you stand up for them, you protect them, and you do what's, you know, you do what's in their best interest. You know, you feel bad for them, right? I don't feel fucking bad for those two swine, those two idiots. I don't feel bad for them. I've never felt bad for them, but that's probably because I was never getting anything out of it. I've always fucking hated their guts. But for some reason, probably because I was the scapegoat. That's probably what saved me, honestly. So the scapegoat's a blessing and a curse. If I wasn't the scapegoat and I didn't get the brunt of abuse, things might have turned out differently. Maybe I would have been, you know, my brother or my sister. Maybe I would have been the one defending the abuse. Maybe I would have been the one that stayed by their side and pretty much, you know, and never really, you know, like my sister, like never really had a life, never really went out and ventured out and had a life of her own. You know, I don't even think my sister, could be wrong. The last time I talked to my sister, she was still living at home, but I don't even think she's ever even had a boyfriend. And this is the extent of the narcissistic abuse / covert infantilization, enmeshment, you know, kind of thing does to you. Like you spend, and I've gotten comments too. You get so babied, especially infantilization. You get so babied and so beaten down, and you get told over and over and over and over that you just don't know how to do anything. So you give up. You literally give up. You become a slave to your narcissistic parents or abuser, whoever's taking care of you while growing up, right? You become essentially trauma bonded to them. You become a slave to them, and you do not know how to do things on your own. But, you know, you don't really know this. You don't take this and you don't question this because, well, to you it's normal. You've always you've always asked them, they've always helped you. But they don't understand the long-term damage all this abuse has done to them. And they don't even know they're being abused in the first place. But, you know, besides just it's not even a fear of leaving. It's not a fear of leaving. They don't even have a fear of leaving. They're just so babied, so infantilized by my parents, my sister especially, just so infantilized, so babied, so overprotected, so sheltered. And this is on purpose. This is not helicopter parenting. This is a very insidious, covert narcissistic abuse tactic that narcissistic parents and other narcissistic abusers will do to infantilize their victim. All right, but she's so infantilized that, you know, she does not understand the extent of the damage that's been done to her. She's never, look, and it's fine. Some people, but literally, she's never lived. She's never lived on her own, from what I know. She's never had a boyfriend. She's never got to really experience how it is to, you know, move out on your own, be out on your own, make friends out on your, like, it's like last time I was with her and my mom, most of the decisions were still being done by my mom. Like, she was still asking. I remember that when she was going into, I think it was her third or fourth year of college, and she was still asking my mom, like, what do you think? Why? I don't know what kind of food I should stock in my dorm room. What do you mean you don't know what kind of you don't know what kind of food you want to stock in your dorm room? Like, this is the extent of the abuse. This is the extent. And when you meet other people like this, you grow up and you meet other people like this, other people with dysfunctional families. You're like, wow, this is normal. You relate with these people, all right? To you, this is normal because this is your normal life. This is your everyday life. This is what's normal. You meet these dysfunctional people, these other dysfunctional families that have all the same fucking dysfunctional traits and dysfunctional habits and gross behavior that your narcissistic parents have, and this is how you keep meeting these people over and over and over again. You keep meeting these people because of the way you grew up with your narcissistic parents. And to you, that's normal. But to the outside world, it's not normal. It's only when you get out of these people, and they may not be all bad people. All these dysfunctional people may not be all bad per se, but you need to get out of these relationships, or at least distance yourself from them, and go hang around normal people who are loving, who do not emotionally manipulate you, who do not gaslight, who do not, who are respectable, who have manners, who are able to teach you things, who are kind without strings attached. Like, once you get away from these dysfunctional, toxic families, this is not going to feel normal. This is going to feel very weird. It's going to feel very weird. It's going to feel very, very, very strange, very uncomfortable. I'm still very uncomfortable. I like, people ask me, like, oh, what'd you eat? What'd you eat for lunch? What'd you eat for dinner? Or what'd you have for breakfast? Or how's your day going? At work all the time, they ask me, how's your day going? This and that. It's like, wait, you're concerned about me, and you're not just faking it like my narcissistic parents. Like, you're concerned about me, and then on top of it, like, I've gotten gifts from people. It's like, wait, you're giving me gifts with no strings attached? You're not going to throw it back in my face later on and tell me that I'm ungrateful because I wasn't using said gift that you gave me 24/7, or you're not going to call me a brat if we have an argument, or you're not going to bring up the Christmas gift that you got me 3 months ago if we get into some kind of argument. You're not going to throw something nasty back in my face. Wow, it's like, this feels uncomfortable. That's because it is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because of the way you grew up, because you were told to take abuse, and you were expected that it was expected without anything having had been said. It was expected already. You knew that kindness was not without strings attached by narcissistic parents. Kindness always had strings attached. Presence always had strings attached. Your mother and father's good mood, right, was always temporary. You never knew what kind of mood they were going to be in. Maybe they're going to be sad, maybe they're going to be angry or annoyed, or they're going to guilt trip you in some way, or they're going to plan something. You never knew, right? The only thing you knew was that the only time you ever got kindness from your parents was when you did what they wanted you to do, was when you acted the way they wanted you to do, was when you were the way they wanted you to be. And your siblings, unfortunately, most of them do not really see the light of day when it comes to what happened to them. They don't really see it. You can be their messenger as the scapegoat. You can tell them, all these things. You can tell them everything that you've been through. You can tell them that what we went through is not normal and it was abuse and this and that. But they're just gonna call you crazy, just like they called me crazy. My brother told me, I think you need to get help. Okay, all right. If you think I need to get help, well, that's what you think. That's whatever you want to say. But it shows you the extent of the sickness when you're trying to help somebody, you're trying to help your siblings, you're trying to help your friend, right? And they're so trauma bonded to this person, they've been so abused by this person, and you've woken up, right? Because you were smart enough to research these things. You were smart enough to research narcissistic abuse, and you're smart enough to research these manipulation tactics and how they affected your body, your mind, your spirit, even that kind of thing, right? And you came to a realization, because you can think outside of the box. You came to a realization, you're like, oh my God, I wasn't being abused all these years and I had no idea. I was just so used to it, so used to being beaten down, because that's how it is. You get so used to being down, they beat you down into submission that you just don't even remember who you were anymore. It's just everything that happened just felt normal, because you've gone through so much pain that when there's nothing they can do. You're numb to the pain, essentially. You're numb to the pain, so a little bit more pain that they can dish out doesn't feel like abuse. They know how much to dish out, and in the right doses, at the right time, so you don't rebel, so you don't fight back, so it doesn't even feel like you're getting abused. You know, the ones that are really good at gaslighting and manipulation can abuse you, and you won't even know you're being abused. Just like my brother and sister, they're in the spider web. They've been in my mother's spider web, been in my father's spider web for their entire lives, and they don't even know they're being abused. That's how good of them. That's how good some of them can be. And they all hide in plain sight. They all hide in plain sight. They hide in the nice neighborhoods. They hide in plain sight, mixed in with the public. The best narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, they are hidden in plain sight. They're not hidden underground. They're not, the people from movies like, The Shining or American Psycho. They're normal, everyday people. They can act like normal, everyday people, at least. They are high-functioning, normal, everyday people who take out their abuse and all their bad traits and evil, on their family or out on the people closest to them. So they do it to a certain amount of people, a certain select group of people. So when it finally comes time to show to put on their mask for the rest of the world, nobody believes the victim, because they only do it to a few people who are very, very close to them, who are very well known. So nobody believes you. And that's probably what's most likely what's happened to your siblings. They don't know they're being abused. They don't know they're being abused, and they can't decipher your narcissistic parents, a sociopath, or maybe they might be a psycho. They can't decipher your parents' abuse, essentially. They can't get out of it. They may decipher the abuse. They may try to decipher what you're trying to say to them. They may think about it. I believe my brothers at least thought about it. My sisters at least thought about it. But they can't see it. They don't see the evil behind the mask, because they don't realize that they're wearing a mask to begin with. So, nothing you can do or say will most likely change their mind. Really, the only thing you can do is you have to write it off as a lost cause. You have to write it off as a lost cause. You have to write off your brother and your sister, your siblings, whatever, as a lost cause, because they are a lost cause. Because they're not going to understand that they're being abused. They're not going to understand that they need to get away from these people. They're not going to understand the reality of the years of time and energy that they've wasted in these people. All right? Regardless of their parent, regardless of whether they're your parents, it's still I don't care if they're my parents or not. I've cut my parents out. I don't give a shit. To an extent, you could say I'm cold-hearted. Yes, to an extent, I'm cold-hearted. I can be very cold-hearted, I would say, with my emotions. I do not have anybody who I would consider who I would die for. Let's just say that. I do not have anybody in this life anymore that I would die for. The only thing that I would have ever died for was my dog, but he already died. I don't know why I'm talking this, but I'm kind of getting off topic. But you have to be like that, in a sense. It doesn't mean you can't care about people, but you only care about people, who have shown through repetition many, 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 many times. Those are the only people I would care about, people, but nobody has so far in my life. Nobody has. They've all shown, their agenda. They've all shown that they're not there for the long run. They're there for a short time. That's how most people are. They're there for a short time, and then they're gone. So it's just like, it's hard. It's hard for me to give it. It's like, not that I don't give a shit, but it's hard for me to make friends with people long term. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but you have to be like that in a way. You have to be cold, and you have to cut them off. But the good news is once you can cut your parents out, once you can cut these people out, you're not going to have any other problems putting a stop to bullshit. When other people sprout their bullshit onto you, or they do something shitty, or they just treat you bad in general, you're not going to have any problems cutting these people out, because you've already cut out, you know, the two most important people in the majority of people's lives, your parents. You've already done one of the hardest things you could possibly do. I mean, just think of how much it takes to reject your parents. Think of the amount of abuse that you have to go through in order to physically and emotionally reject your parents. I got physically sick being around my parents in the house from the stress that they put me under, and just being around them in general. So like I would like dry heave and gag. I'd get physically sick around them. That's really what I knew. But you have to be cold in this world to an extent, because it's a dog-eat-dog world now. And there are going to be plenty other predators, psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists that are going to try to take advantage of your kindness. They're going to see it as weakness. They're going to pretend to get to know you, or want to get to know you, pretend to befriend you, pretend to be there for you, just to once again, like you've been through so many times, you get the rug pulled out underneath from you, and you're back to square one. So you got to really pay attention. You got to really keep your heart guarded. You got to be cold, to an extent, for sure, and really be careful who you let in your life, because it could be the difference between your mental health, sanity, or even your even life or death, depending on if they're violent enough or not. But yeah, so sorry I got off track a little bit. That's all I got for the video. Leave a like if you liked it. Put a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Until the next one, take care.